Newsom was delivering a speech. Governor Newsom was calling on state lawmakers to approve a November ballot measure to redraw congressional maps. The move is a direct response to Republicans pushing to redraw maps there to fulfill President Trump's request to create 5 new Republican House seats. It also marks the first time any state beyond Texas has officially waded into the mid-decade redistricting battle. Governor Newsom says if California will back down, but only if Texas does first. In fact, it says it's only doing this in response to Texas. He also says other blue states must step up as well.
We have got to recognize the cards that have been dealt, and we have got to meet fire with fire. And we've got to be held to a higher level of accountability. We can't stand back and watch this democracy disappear district by district all across this country, not just in Texas, but in Missouri, where J.D. Vance went just a week ago, in Indiana, in places like Ohio, in places like Florida. We need to stand up.
California state lawmakers must officially declare the special election, which is expected to happen in the coming days. If the measure passes, it will allow new maps to be enacted in time for the 2026 midterm elections. So joining us now to discuss the nationwide debate over redistricting, as well as the ACLU of Nevada's lawsuit against the DMV, UNLV professor Michael Green. And I want to thank you, Michael, for joining us. I know you're a history professor, so I want to try to keep it in that vein. I know there's a lot of politics happening. But let's first talk about the unprecedented nature of what we're seeing happening across our country. The redistricting effort, the president not being shy about the fact that he wants to find 5 seats to better help their majority in the House. He wants that done by 2026. And Governor Abbott in Texas said, sure. And now we see all of this playing out. Let's talk about it.
Well, the idea of gerrymandering, and it's named for a guy named Elbridge Gerry, but it seems better to go with goes back to Massachusetts redistricting in the early 19th century, and somebody said that the district looked like a salamander. I said, no, it looks like a gerrymander, which is a reminder that this has gone on a long time. And it was only in the 1960s that the U.S. Supreme Court said, wait a minute, we can involve ourselves in these kinds of disputes. They used to say it was a political question. So what Abbott and Newsom and company are up to has gone on in one form or another from the beginning. But is it very different to see a mid-decade redistricting? We go back to the early 2000s, and Tom DeLay, who was a Republican House leader from Texas, was pulling similar shenanigans then. And what Newsom is doing is the classic logical response, for lack of a better way to put it. If the other guy is going to do this, then we must react to be able to counter it.
Right. But from that vein, I think I do want to go back, and I'm glad that you're giving us the historical context of this, because I think a lot of people don't understand exactly what gerrymandering is. So usually it's done, as you mentioned, there's a census done, and you look at the population of people, right? And from that population source, then you decide where the districts are, who gets the representation and who doesn't. Now we're seeing where, parties are paying, or at least the Republican Party in this instance, playing politics, saying that, the president being forthright and saying, I want 5 seats. It kind of reminds us of what he did with Georgia when he called them and said, I need 11,000 votes, 11,500, something like that votes. Do you feel like now we're going to start seeing more things like this happening, even though, yes, we have seen this in the past? It does seem kind of unusual for a president to call a governor and say, I need this exact amount of seats.
Oh, it's very unusual. But then again, while there are precedents for presidents reaching out to governors and wanting certain things, certainly Donald Trump is unusual, unique in so many other ways. And yes, we're going to see more of this, I think. If California does this in response to Texas, and then Illinois jumps in, they're going to go to other Republican states where they can find seats, and so on and so on. And it's a shame. Enough people already doubt the honesty and integrity of our electoral processes, and this does not help it. At the same time, I don't think it's altogether logical to expect one side to roll over and play dead and say, well, we're going to stick with this idea. I'll give you a comparison. Over the years, Democrats have been very critical of PACs and dark money and all that. And I can remember when Harry Reid was in the U.S. Senate, he had what you might call a dark money pack. And he said, yeah, I don't like it, but if they're going to do it, we have to compete.
Oh, wow. All right.
This
so
is politics.
This is politics. The other thing that we're talking about here locally is ICE enforcement. We see this playing out across the country too. But the ACLU says, they want transparency. It's filing a lawsuit with the DMV. Is this unprecedented? Is this something new too, where we see the federal government kind of intervening in state matters, if you will, when it comes to immigration enforcement?
Well, we have seen the federal government stick its nose in before, but I'm not able to think of cases where they were going to the DMV and saying, give us this information. However, the Nevada legislature passed a law on this in 2023. Governor Lombardo signed the law saying, well, if you ask, it has to be that the person who is the subject has to give approval, or there have to be warrants and that sort of thing. And so we're talking about privacy, which is a concept not explicitly mentioned in the Constitution, but we're also coming to the possibility of discussing a warrantless search or something like that. The federal government has overreached over the years. We know that, and there are legendary stories of, say, J. Edgar Hoover's FBI. In this case, immigration enforcement, usually not to this degree.
Okay, we've got to have you back. There's so much more we could say about both of these topics, but we are out of time. Again, Michael Green, a history professor there at UNLV. We appreciate your time.